I'm going to tell you something that most designers won't tell you. Sometimes we do too much design to our Instagram posts or to our graphics, and it is actually doing more harm than good for your performance. I know that sounds weird coming from a graphic designer, but I wholeheartedly believe that design isn't really just about making things look pretty and using fancy Canva tricks. Design's actually about strategically communicating what you need to communicate. And sometimes, friends, the best way to actually do that isn't some fancy pants design with 50 different Canva hacks in it. It's actually something far, far simpler. And that's what I want to chat about in this episode. So hi, if we have not met before, it is a pleasure to have you here. I'm a graphic designer who is stopping the gatekeeping and helping everyday business owners create their own incredible branding and graphics inside places just like Canva so that you can have your own incredible brand that costs half of the price and something that you are proud of and can edit at any time that you want. But design is important, and so there are things you do need to know as a DIYer, and so that's what I love to share. And if that sounds helpful to you, make sure you hit subscribe if you're on YouTube, or make sure that you hit subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. So let's start by chatting about the overdesign epidemic. Ever since Canva came onto the scene, business owners have been doing their own graphics, and that's been really great. But because Canva came onto the scene, it made business owners feel like they could do anything. And I am all for that because I really believe in the autonomy of being able to do your own graphics and how fun that is and how empowering that is and how just practical it is for a business owner. But what it means is because you can now use a little design program, it means that you are now using that design program a little bit too much, and you're putting, because I guess it's kind of like a kid in a lolly shop. 20 years ago, you couldn't do any of your own design unless you kind of jumped into Word or MS Paint and tried to do something and it turned out pretty rubbish. Now that you have all of these tools at your disposal, it's like a kid in a lolly shop. You see all of these things, like you've got shadows and effects and this cool font and this cool font over there, and you want to try them all. But that's not necessarily going to help your business actually perform. So as a business owner, you need to stop thinking about how I can make this super pretty and fun and start thinking, how can I be strategic? Because what happens is when we bring too much in the design, instead of it looking professional, it starts to look cheap. Honestly, that sometimes the more that you do, the more cheap your brand will look. And if you have like a really cheap brand that you want to make look like super affordable and playful, maybe go a little bit more overboard with the fancy design things. But for most of us, we have a product or service we're charging a good amount of money for because we're trying to have a really sustainable business. And it means that when we try to do too much in our graphics, it actually does the opposite effect of what we want, and it brings down our value. And so I want to talk to you about the science of simplicity. The science of simplicity is a concept that I've made up, and it is all about this idea that the less you do, the more powerful it is. And so this is meaning oftentimes what happens? You're probably like this, I don't understand what you're talking about, Jackie. I want you to picture going into Canva, opening up a design, adding in your text, adding in your colors. If you've gone through my programs and you've worked out all your brand colors and all your brand fonts and you're feeling really good about that, and then you look at the design, you're like, this feels really boring. And what most business owners do is they add little effects, or they add little graphics, or they add different cool fonts. And what that does, as I mentioned, is it makes your design look more cheap. But they're doing it because the design feels boring and they're not sure how to make it look interesting without doing all these things. So the science of simplicity is actually using really strategic design principles to make your designs look interesting without actually adding more to it. And one of the most important design principles for doing this is actually a principle called hierarchy. Now, I talk about this so often, so you might have heard me speak to it before, but it's really important in this conversation. And it's this idea, like hierarchy, if you haven't heard of it before, is this idea that you as the designer of your graphic can direct your audiences. So anyone viewing this graphic, you can direct their eye where you want it to go. So if you make one piece of text really large, people are probably going to see that first and it's going to capture their attention. If you make a piece of text really small, that's going to be read next. And so we can direct our audience's eyes. But the way that we often do this is through contrast. And that might be through contrast of color. So having like a dark text on a light background, that's a really strong contrast. Or it might be having a contrast of sizing. And this contrast in sizing is one of the most underutilized design tools that I see most business owners not taking advantage of. It's the main way to create hierarchy. And what it is this idea that you are creating sizing contrast between your biggest hierarchical points, the thing you want someone to see most, to what you want them to see next. And instead of just putting like your heading text in size 30 and your next size text in size 25, what you're doing is you're making that size difference really large. You're increasing the contrast in the sizing. So instead of doing 30 and 25, you might do 120. And that's creating a huge level of contrast. And that huge level of contrast, my friends, is one of the best and most gate-kept design tools of designers to make your designs look professional without adding more to it. So if your design is looking busy, instead of adding lots to it, which I'm going to talk about the things you might be adding next, I want you to increase the sizing contrast of your text. Think about does someone need to see first when they look at this graphic, and think through, like, if someone's scrolling their social media and your audience is scrolling your social media, like, think through your target audience, put their hat on, what's going to capture their attention? Like if I was running a free masterclass, I wouldn't put the text free masterclass the biggest, I'd put the text earn 100K in your business. And that's going to capture someone's attention more than free masterclass. So think through a few words. You don't want to make your whole social media post all important. You need to choose 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5, 6, 7 words to make biggest. I wouldn't make it any more than that. And then you make that huge, and then you make the secondary text, and there might be 50 pieces of secondary, not 50. There might be like 5 pieces of secondary text, like maybe a tagline, and then a date, and then a call to action, and maybe the word free masterclass. They might be all of your pieces of text, and you can have all of those decreasing in sizing. So one might be really large, that they're heading that main focal point, and the rest is really small. And doing that kind of design strategy is what's going to make your designs look interesting without it overcomplicating it. And like, if you don't believe me, please try this for yourself. Pick the most recent graphic you made that looked kind of boring. Before you add anything to it, just increase the sizing contrast. Make something huge versus something small, and you're going to see the impact that makes in your design. And so I want to talk about now what to strip back. So I've told you what to add in, and that's sizing contrast and some strong hierarchy. And what I need you to strip back is a few things. Firstly, if you've worked with me at all, you will know that I share that you should only use 2 to 3, sometimes even 1 font in your business and in your designs. If you add more than 3 fonts, what's happening is all your different fonts are starting to say different things, and they're starting to fight. They're starting to look too busy, and they're all sharing different messages because fonts have voices. I won't get into it now, but every sort of font is saying something subtle. And if you have too many fonts, people are getting confused. It looks busy, it looks confusing, it doesn't look cohesive and seamless and professional. So don't add too many fonts. Similar with color, don't add too many different colors unless you're going for full rainbow vibes. I've got full lessons and stuff in my courses on how to pick your colors, but in essence, you can even have 2 colors for your brand, or you can have a whole range of colors, but you need to make sure those colors work well together rather than jarring each other. And then the third thing is really just stop adding all the fancy things. If you're adding like Canva, in Canva, you can add text effects. If you're going to add a text effect, just add 1 text effect to maybe the main piece of text. Don't add a cutout effect here, and then a shadow effect here, and then a lift effect here, and then all the glow. Don't use the glow effect except for very specific situations. It's like the pet peeve of mine. The glow effect, and like all these effects are okay on their own, but sometimes people use too many of them because their design doesn't feel interesting enough, and then they're using the wrong thing to create attention. They're using the wrong thing to create interest, and that's why that sizing hierarchy piece is much more effective than adding a lot of things, because when you add too many effects, again, your design starts to look unprofessional and cheap because you look like a kid in a lolly shop that is just picking all these random things rather than intentionally choosing effects that actually support that design itself. Like, I'll use a shadow, I'll use an outline, I'll use a glow effect even, but I'm using it very intentionally in specific places and only ever one at a time. Similarly, Canva has a ton of different elements. Again, using those specifically. If you've been in my programs, you'll know that I teach you how to choose a whole collection of elements for your branding. But again, those elements are all cohesive. They all are telling the same story. They're all looking part of your same brand visual identity. And so using those elements strategically and not just overcomplicating it is really important too. And so I want you to think through, am I overcomplicating things? Am I putting too much in here because I'm insecure that it's looking boring? Because when we just add stuff for the sake of it, we're actually impacting our credibility and our professionalism more than we are ruining anything else. And that's even to say, like, sometimes what's actually going to be most effective for your business isn't doing this fancy pants Canva design. It's actually just grabbing a nice picture. Doesn't even have to be a professional picture. This is for an Instagram post. Grabbing a nice picture, going into Instagram, adding a little bit of text in a brand color and posting that. Look at some of the most successful creators that you are following, successful marketers that you're following, and you'll notice a lot of them do this more organic style content that doesn't look perfectly curated, perfectly designed, because it connects with people on a more organic and real level, and people are craving that in this current age of AI and overconsumption and over creation. And so when you're creating your graphics, whether it's in Canva or right inside the Instagram app, keep it simple. Try not to overcomplicate it. Focus on good design, clear branding, and don't feel like you're proving yourself. When we feel like we have to prove ourselves or look a certain way, that's when we start to overcomplicate things and we start to make things look worse than they started out as. So don't try to prove yourself through your designs. Be really strategic, slow down, think about the hierarchy, increase that sizing contrast, make sure you're using your brand colors and fonts. Don't add anything to it. If you see a really cool font in Canva, use it for a birthday invitation. Don't use it for your brand business post. Keep them simple, keep it simple, keep it simple. So that's the anti-design method. Don't overcomplicate your designs, because when you add too much design to your design, it will look more unprofessional than when you started. So keep it simple. And if you are looking for how you can learn how to use design well, if you're looking for how you can actually create a brand where you know your brand colors, you know your brand fonts, you know your brand elements, I would love to have you inside my course. But a first step to doing doing that is to watch my free masterclass. It's called Design Tools to 100K. And then in there, I go through some really incredible Canva shortcuts. I go through some really important design mistakes with a ton of examples. Plus, I show you in real time how to edit a Canva template to make it on brand. And those things are going to help get your mind ticking. It's going to help you see how design should be done. It's going to inspire you to what's possible for your business and making it look professional and saving hours inside Canva instead of overcomplicating things and getting frustrated at the program that's meant to be helping your business. So make sure you check out that masterclass if you have not already. If you're wanting more support, I would love to have you in my course, DIY Design My Biz. It's for everyday business owners who are looking to create incredible designs and brands for their businesses so they can show up professionally and show up confidently. So thanks for joining me for this episode. If you found this one helpful, make sure you let me know in the comments if you're on YouTube which design, maybe what you're guilty of. Which design thing are you guilty of? Are you adding too many effects? Are you adding too many fonts? Are you adding too many elements? What are you guilty of? I would love to know. No judgment here. But no, thank you for joining me. If you're not already, make sure you hit subscribe and hit like if you're on YouTube. And I will see you next week for another video, or if not sooner, inside the Design Tools to 100K Masterclass. It's free, by the way. I didn't mention that, but it's a free masterclass. So there is nothing to lose. Link is in the description below. All right. See ya.